What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Brandon Golden Show, episode 10 with my boy, Petie Montero. Guys, Petie was one of the first people I met when I got with the Dodgers organization. He has done a wide variety of things. Petie, thanks for being here, my man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Pleasure. And, I know we still keep in touch, even though, we're at different points in our lives, but, you're one of the good guys. So talking to you is definitely something I'm looking forward to.
I appreciate that, man. It means a lot. I feel the same way. Let's kind of jump right into it, Petie. So I know you've done a lot of instruction. I know you've done a lot of things before getting into professional baseball. Talk to us a little bit about, like, what was that like working in the private sector? What were some of the goals that you had? And what was just, I guess, the overall thought process and kind of things you were doing in the private sector side?
Yeah. So I would say it probably started for me when I was in high school. Like, ex coaches or coaches that I had in travel ball or scout ball had like these youth teams and they asked me to come help out. So I kind of started with that. And then every time I'd come home during college, during the winter break, I'd go and help out at these camps. So I kind of already had like a little itch to want to coach. And, I love to play obviously, but I definitely like the coaching side of things. And, I was fortunate to be around Reggie Smith, who is my mentor. He's like another father, to me. And, I met him when I was 14 years old. And, I was a student. And then 2007, I graduated from college and he had asked me to come back and help out. Didn't know what I was getting myself into. And, about 2 years of sitting next to him and helping out, learning, and him asking me about every little thing about the game and how to help players, how you're coaching players. I think that's where the attention to detail came in for me a little bit, as well as being a fireman and going through the firefighter stuff for me. Um, and I just kind of bought into all the things that I had learned, but also trying to find, we don't teach players, players teach us to teach them. So you have to build that relationship first and, go through that process and then see what works for kids and players in general, because he was working with major league players, minor league players, and so on. And, I got the opportunity to kind of learn from the ground up, which is stuff that I learned as a player, but then now having to teach it and find different ways to teach it was, I think, kind of a big part for me as I moved forward in my coaching career. And, I had obviously starting, I wanted to build my clientele and work with groups of teams. And we worked with a little league team out of Encino Little League and worked with a bunch of the all-star teams there. And I think that's where it just I started to gain more and more of a passion for it and wanted to see how far I could take it, and coached a little bit in high school, helped out at my old junior college, helped out at other places. And then I was working as a firefighter, had just was looking to switch to the bigger fire department when the Dodgers called me in 2016, going into 17, and that's kind of where it all started for me.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
Let's I want to unpack one thing because I think it was something really cool that you just said. Players teach us how to teach them. Talk a little bit about that, because that's a fact, and I want to hear your insight on that, and then I'll kind of add some stuff in here in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with, just getting to know the person, and I think that's, you can't just go right into coach and just because you see something and something, and, maybe they're a visual learner. Maybe they need to see you do it or show them diagrams or whatever the case may be in slow motion video and all those things. And, if you just say, hey, we're going to do this, and that doesn't work for them or they don't understand what you're saying, I think there's more to it. And understanding, you can't coach every little thing that they're doing, and you just have to let them fail. And I think the biggest goal for me and things that I learned, again, and I'll say Reggie's name a lot, was, you want to help players be their own best instructors, because you're not always going to be there as a coach, whether you're coaching them individually as an instructor on a team, because now they're going to high school or they're playing on a different team now. And, being able to give them those tools, I think, is really important, but also making them take ownership, because, as especially with the Dodgers, we talk about, it's still your own career, whether you're in little league, high school, college, and so on. And we're here to help support the players, but also give information as we see it. And, sometimes it's not, there's a little bit of trial and error for both sides. And I think that's where you have to figure out, what works for that player, and the words that you say may be a little bit different than the next kid or the next player you're working with. So I think that's the big part of it is, you have to figure out how they learn and what works for them. And then you kind of put that in your notebook and have that. So you need to maybe there's a guy that you need to push a little bit, or there's a kid that you need to kind of, hey, it's all right. You're going to be okay. You put your arm around him and he responds to that differently than, you know, you yelling at him. And I'm not a yeller when it comes to that. So it's more of being a little more firm when it comes to certain things. I think that's how coaching is. And that's the best part about coaching. That's the fun part for me.
Yeah, it's the art of it. I talk about people like the art of coaching all the time, like being with the Dodgers, and you have every piece of information and science that you could ever want. I mean, there's systems in there that we won't go into that have literally anything and everything from physical development, from player performance, from mental performance to hitting, pitching, and all these different things. And you could go anybody that has the education to understand what that stuff means could go and, I guess, quote unquote, go coach. But your point, the art of coaching and understanding how to interact with those folks is going to be so different. I mean, it's no different than you mentoring me when I got with the Dodgers in Arizona. It's like if I'm trying to have a conversation with a kid from Latin America, like we have completely different life experiences. I can understand what they need to do and I know what they need to go do. But if I can't meet them where they're at and approach them in a way that they're going to appreciate and feel taken care of, it doesn't mean anything. And that's, there'd be times where you and I'd be like, Petie, I need help with pick the kid, whoever it is.
Right.
And I need you to help me. And it's like, how should I go about it? It's like, well, let me talk to him. I'll bring you in. I'll help kind of with the language barrier and we'll roll. So that in and of itself, I think is worth the price of admission for this show today. Like the players are going to teach you how to teach them. And if you can figure out how to do that at a high level, you can go learn anything. You can go learn any system. You can go learn whatever you want. But if you can't master that part, coaching and teaching is going to be very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it too is like having an open mind because, I know you and I can talk about this because we've experienced it together where I think you were kind of shocked a few times when I asked you like, hey, what do you got on this guy? Like what's his mobility issues? Cause I can't get him to get in this position feeling Carlos Santiago, perfect example.
Yeah.
And we had to do all of his prep work and all things before he was allowed to take ground balls or do any of his defensive work. And then all of a sudden his body changed and he was getting into better positions. But that's the thing is like the coaching part. And I'll give a shout out to Eric Yavarone, who's on our major league staff, who I was fortunate enough to work with in the minor leagues on the same staff in Rancho. And, we helped a lot of players because this is where like the coaching aspect for me, like just because I know what I'm looking for doesn't mean I can help the player because it's not my department or field. And not that it's not, but now like I have a really good understanding of what we need to do. And now I can say, hey, this guy have this? Does he have this mobility issue? And then what is his stuff that he needs to do to make sure he's ready for his work, right? And I think we had that conversation a lot and it helped because now you're also helping me on the coaching side, right? Like that's the beauty of the experience that I have with the Dodgers is like we all work together because there's things that you can help provide. And again, now the players are teaching us what they need. So now I need somebody to help me. And now I'm expanding my horizon as a coach because I'm learning other things that have to do with, obviously I was a kinesiology major and all those things. So like I have an understanding, but what you do is different from what I do. And if you can go, hey, you just need to do a couple of these prep work drills and this, that, and the other, and it'll get them. And then all of a sudden you see it and you're going like night and day, completely different person. And then now it's like, now my job as a coach is this is why you need to do the things that you need to do before you get on the field for this exact reason. And now we make it work and now everyone's together and the players buy into it. And then now we see more success on the field.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. We would have our list of our movement assessments with guys and we would walk around and guys from literally the BG all the way down to, people in the DSL would be walking around and be asking us performance coaches like, hey, where are we at with this guy? And it's like, hey, this specific thing that we're working on developing, that may take 3 to 6 weeks. This one, he's good. He just has to stay on top of it. And, the I guess, forward thinking of understanding that and allowing the process to happen is one thing that, really, in my opinion, separates the Dodgers from any other organization. And obviously I'm biased. I talked to B back on here the other day. It's like, it's the only organization I've worked in. So I'm biased on that front, but that's my experience. And yeah, to your point, man, like being able to give them what they need I've heard countless times, and I know you have to, probably in college, high school, and even at any level, pick it, probably talking to some of your colleagues in the big leagues. So and so can't do a certain thing, and they just keep telling them, "Hey, get in your back leg, get over
Yeah.
your front side, do whatever." And it's like there's a physical limitation. There's a reason why they can't do it. It's either a
Right.
strength, mobility, coordination, twitch, a power thing. We can help on that side, on the performance side, and then you take it on the skill side, and then even vice versa. It's like there could be some different. There's countless things that we'd be here all day if we talked about the things that you taught me. But like, there's so many things that we can pick up as performance coaches just by watching and asking questions. So I think, again, the players teaching you how to teach them, it comes from different conversations. It comes from getting outside your bubble and,
And watching with your eyes.
and watching with your eyes and asking great questions. It's like, hey, is that how you want it to look? Because you guys are the one that are developing the skills and putting that stuff forward, man. So that's outstanding. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about Rancho. So whenever you got to, or I guess let's just talk about like your transition from the instructing side to professional baseball, and what was that like?
Yeah, so so Valentine's Day I got hired 2017. I got hired on a Thursday, and then I got asked to leave for big league camp on Saturday. So I was like, yeah, I'll grab my stuff and took off. And but it was a different process for me just because I had been through like 60 firefighter interviews in the last like 3 years, and to do a baseball interview. And I was still keeping my coaching skills up. I started my own academy, so I was coaching kids on a regular basis when I wasn't working. And I took a crack at the first interview with Gabe Kapler, who I knew from, because we're from the same area. And when he was working out, I was practicing and working at the only indoor facility, which is crazy because it's where Craig Wallenbrock and JT, Justin Turner's hitting guy, Doug Lotta, had the only indoor facility in our area. So everybody went there, major league players and everything. So that's how we kind of already had that relationship. And then when I reminded him of that, he goes, "Oh, I remember who you are." And I took the interview. It was a list of questions and I had to answer them. And, having been in the fire service, like when they give you something, like you got to get it done right away and like, get it off as soon as you can. And that might've been my first mistake. Right. And then this is like different worlds and like different, sir, yes, sir, to a little more not relaxed approach, but different approach of how they do things. And I answered all the questions like a baseball coach, which weren't wrong. And I ended up not getting hired the first time around. And then they started a dual coaching gig. So there was two of us, and they asked me to take it again. And I answered it like more on, the human aspect of it and like experiences and things that have actually happened versus what I would do as a coach. And after I did that, within 5 minutes, I got a phone call from Cap, and he's all, "The job's yours if you want it. This is what I was looking for." And I was like, man, if I would have known that from the beginning, I would have just answered like that the first time. So, I was one of those things where, I came through the process, and, I think that kind of stuck with me, because even there's something that, Gabe is, even in our conversations to this day, is like always making yourself available to players. And that's like something that sticks with me to this day, every day that I do something. And, so 2017, I was in a dual role with another guy. I was in the Dominican for 3 weeks, Arizona for 3 weeks. So I was going back and forth. I was a hitting coach in the Dominican, helped out with infield and base running. And then in Arizona, I was an assistant hitting coach, first base coach, infield and base running, and kind of like the bench coach. So that's kind of where that started. And, I really just enjoy every part of the game. And then the next year I got asked to be a bench coach in Rancho. And that was in 2018. And we had a list of players that I could name off that are either in the big leagues right now. I mean, from Dustin May to Tony Gonsolin, Gavin Lux, Cody Thomas. There's just so many. There's a long list of guys that were on our. Connor Wong was on our team. Hamlet Marte, who's now our bullpen catcher. There's just a long list of players that we had, and that team completely changed halfway through the year, and we absolutely went on a run. 15 games in a row we won, and we never looked back and swept the finals and ended up being champions. But that is probably one of my favorite years. Obviously, winning the World Series is amazing, but like in minor league, that was probably my favorite year in minor league baseball, just because the staff that we had. So we had Drew Saylor, who was our manager. He was a hitting coordinator with the Royals for a little bit and the Pirates, and now he's the AAA hitting coach with Houston as of now. And we had Eric Yavarone, who's on our major league staff as a performance staff. We had Connor McGinnis, who's our assistant major league pitching coordinator. We had Yuya, who is now major league strength coach in Japan. And then Justin Bealey, who's major league hitting coach. He's with the Giants now with Texas Rangers. And then myself. And to see all of our guys, this is where I'd say like we started the whole, not our group, but like we were really into the technology portion of it and diving into computers, Excel, PowerPoint, and like really dominating those things. I think is really cool because that was 2018 and we were barely getting computers as a staff. Only the manager had one. I went out and bought my own. And then after that, the next year, after everyone was getting computers. So, I think that was like one of my favorite years because I felt like it just pushed me to another level from not only the coaching side, because that's where you learn about, again, what the performance staff is able to do, how we all work together, and then, seeing these guys develop, but also us as a staff develop and seeing the things that we were able to do, whether it was Connor McGinnis helping me with how he's pitching guys and how to look at pitch characteristics to figure out our position in the infield and the outfield and so on. And I think, those are some of the little things that I value and I still carry with me every single day being in Rancho in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, just a stud group of human beings that were there. And I think it goes to like, being able to truly have those like barriers broken down. Like there's so many times there's silos from the medical side to the performance side to the hitting to the sports, like the skill acquisition side. Like when those walls are broken down, that's where the magic happens. And that's why the Dodgers, in my opinion, have been able to be so successful. It's, people talk about they buy players and we do all this stuff. And it's like, but we also develop the absolute crap out of the guys in the minor leagues. And then they either go to the big leagues or they're traded for a superstar like Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. So it just depends on kind of how you look at it there. But I think one thing I want to talk about, Petey, is I want people to understand what the DSL is like and what the Arizona Complex League is like. Kind of talk us about like what a day looks like in the Dominican Republic for the players there.
Yeah, so breakfast was around 6 a.m. every day because everything happens early just because of the weather and they, rain and all that stuff. So it was like 6 a.m. breakfast and like 7 o'clock, we're already doing early workout on the field. And it's like, it literally feels like it's a spring training day every single day. Cause at that point we had two teams there. And then we had what was called the Tricky League, which was the incoming players that we were looking to sign. And we had a whole nother staff, but we'd also help out with those guys too. So it was almost like three teams at one point. And, we have two fields, a half field, and one main field where we played our games. And then we had these huge cages. There's probably 6 cages, I believe, in this like, roofed off area.
Yeah.
And it was just, everyone and the staff there is unbelievable. They all just help each other out, whether it's in the cage, on the field, hitting fungos, doesn't matter. Everyone's there to help each other. And, it was a really awesome experience for me just because you have, 13 infielders at one point or whatever it is. And, all those guys are hitters. And then, teaching the fundamentals because a lot of these guys are coming from, tryouts and working out and, trying to impress teams. And now there's certain things that you're trying to change and make them, help them to become a real baseball player in a sense of like how we do things, how the Dodgers do things. And, there's a long process to that, but there's also like, that's the beauty of baseball is like helping players to get better and like, hey, you don't have to do this. Like you can make it simpler by doing this. And then they go, wow, that's so much easier than I was doing before. And, teaching some of the ins and outs of the game just because they're not playing as much games as some of the other players and, depending on where they're at or where they're coming from. But, and the same thing in Arizona, like you have those kids that came from the DSL that now have moved and come to the States. And now it's like their first time in the States. So there's that portion of it that you have to understand. And if you understand, what they've been through and how they're trying to fight for their family and get off the island, how important that is. And you just want to help be a part of that, right? Like you treat everyone the same. And that's one thing that I learned from Reggie because he was with the Dodgers organization for a long time. As a player, minor league staff and then on the major league staff. And, didn't matter if you were the first pick in the draft or the last pick in the draft and this goes for everybody, but like, you're going to get treated the same for me just because you never know. This
Yeah.
guy might be the one that makes it, right? So, you got to give everyone the same love, and that's kind of what you see around the DSL. And then coming over to Arizona, now you're talking about rehab, right? So that's an all day event just for staff. Like I remember I'd be there at 9 a.m. for the major league rehab guys and run that program with the position players, then hang out, eat some lunch, and then start our day, for our team, whether it was extended or it was, the season itself. And, from that point, it's again, you have two teams again, one big team with a bunch of players that rotate in and out. And then guys are, then we got the draft players that are coming in. And, it's almost like spring training for the both of those. For me, that's what it feels like, spring training in both of those places, just because there's a large group of players. And, again, you should be exhausted by the end of the day mentally because you're trying to help all these players. And I mean, you were there when we would be playing 27 outs, in the AZL, trying to get these guys extra work, extra situations to, something that we need to work on from the previous games that we, had a tough time with. And again, like, we have to provide that and help them because we need to make sure that they're ready when they have to go to Rancho or Great Lakes or wherever they have to go fill in at that point, and make sure that, they're confident in themselves, but also that the staffs that they're going to are confident that they can put them in any situation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot to unpack there too, Petey. Let's talk about, I think one thing that I really want people to understand is just the difference between, players and there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences as well. Players in the States and then players that come from the Dominican or Latin America, and just the difference in like the way those players in Latin America go about their business. Because you said like they are trying to get off the island. They're trying to hit or throw their way off the island. Talk a little bit about that, like what that means. How does that look for those players, and just the level of determination, work ethic, just how that's a little bit different than what we see the typical American player.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there is that part of, these kids are all young. They're 17, 16 years old. And, what they're doing is they're trying to help their families. And I think that's where it all starts for me. Just, talking to those guys and, understanding, even having some of those kids in the States where, sending money to their families and like, them, coming together to help each other out. And I think, you watch the way these guys go about their business every single day, and like, it's not like it's their big leagues, but that they treat every day like it's the big leagues, because they want to work their tails off to do what they can to get to the States. And I think that's really cool to watch because it makes you, I mean, it helped me as a coach understand even more, what that means for a lot of people, because I've heard that a lot for a long time as a coach and as a kid growing up. And you watch all the shows on MLB Network and all the things like that kind of, they make these cool presentations. And not only that, I mean, I've had that experience even just being in Puerto Rico coaching. And, for me, it's like you watch the passion that these kids have for the game because that's what they know. And that's some of them, that's all they know, in some places. And it's really, for me, it's just something, I mean, I get the chills every time I think about it because these kids just like, they want to get better. They want to do everything they can to get new bats, new gloves, little things like that. And it's, you see these kids with some of the new gear and, it's almost like that's where the swag comes in for them, like as a player, right? Because they're able to get these things and now they want to perform. And it's really cool to watch for sure.
Yeah, it is. It is. I completely agree. I wanted people to hear that from you. Let's talk a little bit. So we talked about Rancho and the staff there and just the unbelievable amount of talent. Let's talk a little bit about Double A in Tulsa and what was that like, kind of moving up. I guess maybe that was the following year.
Yeah,
Who was
2000. Yeah,
what
2019.
Yeah, how is Double A different than A ball?
So it's definitely a little bit of it's a cleaner game for sure, that Double A. And like, these guys are all really good baseball players. I mean, watching that Double A on every team that we played with. I mean, some of those kids, actually, it's funny. A lot of those guys were all in the All-Star game that I threw a home run derby that were on the Puerto Rico in winter ball. So it was like really cool to have those conversations about that. But watching these players, whether it was like a Dustin May and, you know, Gavin Lux, who was on a tear that year, that was like his most unbelievable season that I had ever seen by a player. Then there's guys like Zach McKinstry that come out of nowhere after guys get injured. And, you know, we had conversations about, you know, hey, man, you just got to keep working. And when they give you a chance to play, you got to find a way to not come out of the lineup. And, you know, he ends up being on the 40 man that next in that offseason. But the consistency of the player was a little bit better. And everyone still makes errors, still makes mistakes. But it was like the velocity, guys throwing strikes and like guys hitting the velocity and making adjustments. That was like a whole nother level that I had not seen in baseball prior to like watching a major league game from the stands, you know, but live for myself on a daily basis. That was a different kind of game that I saw in Double A. And I, you know, you always hear about that. That's where most of the best players go. And, you know, those guys are ready for the big leagues, but they need a couple more things. And like you watched it every night, and it was something special to watch, especially with that group of players that we had again that moved up, and we had a whole new team, and we got to the finals and lost in game 5 of the finals that year. And you know, but it was, you know, it's something definitely for sure that you'll understand if you get to be on a Double A staff and watch how the players, you know, even conduct themselves, how they go about their work. And it's like that next phase of like they just hit that growth spurt as a player, and now they have their routine down. They're coming into work every single day, like all those little things that you're still kind of teaching those things to the DSL, AZL, and even a little bit of the A ball players as well. But you know, then there's those guys that kind of take off on their own. So I think there's a little bit of that. But now it's like everyone's getting ready to put that work in every single day, which was really cool to see from the Double A.
No doubt, man. It's a fact. That's a fact. Like being able to see some of that stuff, like even when I was with the Dodgers, like when I was slated to go to Double A, I mean, Michael Bush was one of those guys that I was going to have, Devin Mann, like a lot of those. I mean, you talk about guys that are absolutely mega dudes. Yeah, just the way they go about their business. Bushy's an everyday big leaguer. So his routine, I'm sure, was pretty darn similar to what he was doing when he was with us in Arizona, that spring training. Let's talk a little bit about like kind of moving into the big leagues. What was that like for you when you knew you were going to be a part of the major league staff and in the big leagues in LA? How did that feel for you?
So I will say I cried when I found out I was going to the big leagues. You know, for me, being a hometown kid born and raised in LA and being a diehard Dodger fan growing up as a kid, and you know, like even getting hired by the Dodgers, I cried. Like I was like so excited because again, Reggie Smith taught me the Dodger way. I had my manager in independent ball was Steve Yeager, and he was a Dodger, and he still does stuff with the Dodgers. So, you know, I felt like I was a Dodger before I actually became a Dodger, you know, and I think it was really special for my family just because, you know, my dad, I went to 16 straight opening days as a kid, and like to be able to have my parents in the stands and like see me and, you know, my dad and my mom wearing my jersey, and like, you know, my dad even he goes, look, you don't even have to pay for this thing anymore, you know, and like, you know, it's like this is what you do, right? So like,
Yeah.
you know, it was really cool. And even my first opening day, and I'll kind of fast forward and then go back, but you know, getting, you know, 150 text messages after game 1 of my first day in the big leagues was like, you know, it meant something not only for me, but for my community and where I'm from. You know, I grew up in, you know, kind of a tough neighborhood, and like, you know, to be able to do that and like show not only my community, but the kids, you know, at my high school or from my area that like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Right. And I think that's kind of something important for me. And I still live by that code every single day. So, sorry.
No, it's awesome.
You know, it's kind of a little special for me. That hits home for sure. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. And that's what it's all about, Pete. I mean, like, that's why, again, like talking about like the art of coaching and all this different stuff, man, like I'm the most emotional dude that I know. Like I get teared up watching a sports movie. Like I'll look at my wife and I'm like, but like, that's what it's all about. Like if you don't feel your emotions, and like to me, that's what it's about, because it matters. Being in the big leagues is a super special thing. Some people take it for granted. I've never been in the big leagues. I don't know what it's like. I've worked in Dodger Stadium in the offseason and stuff like that. But again, the day-to-day grind, I don't know if it's a grind or not. Some people may call it a grind. There's a lot going on. Obviously, it's the major leagues.
Yeah.
But to be able to make it there, like to your point, like if you look at what you've done, you were a firefighter, you worked all the way up through, being in different facilities for years, for several years. It's not like you were there for 6 months. You were there for years, grinding your behind off, doing what you needed to do. You get the job. You didn't get it at first. You get the job. Then you get to high A, double A, and then in Arizona with me, and then you're in the big leagues. Like, man, like that's something to be proud of, and it's special. So
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, man. It's pretty awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And like, to be honest with you, like, the work has never been done for me. It's like, it's always continuing to work. And I think a lot of it too is, that's the beauty of the Dodgers. Like, there is no such thing as like in the minor leagues itself. Like, you can be in the Dominican one year and the next year you can be in AAA, and then you can go back down to double A and single A. And, I was fortunate enough to have these young infielders because that was my thing, was infield, and taking those guys through double A, which I had the Gavin Luxes, Christian Santana's, Omar Estevez's, and those guys, Zach McKinstry. And when those guys moved up, Reimer was like, hey, we have a huge group of Latin infielders, and we'd like for you to handle it. And at that point, Clayton McCullough, who you had on your show, my Miami Marlins manager, and Sean Larkin were kind of doing the dual field coordinator role. And I was fortunate, like I kind of got some experience coordinating because those guys were so busy that I had to handle the infield stuff. So they asked me to go back down to AZL, and I was like, sure, whatever. And it was like, okay, no problem. I was obviously 21 then. 22, I signed to go back for one more year to AZL to stay with that group because they were going to keep that infield crew together again one more time. I said, yeah, sure, no problem. That was in like November when I signed my contract, and then January comes rolling around, and mind you, 2017 through to this day, I'm still going to Dodger Stadium in the offseason when I'm home and helping out, with whatever players. And my first 3 years, I mean, we had 12 to 15 minor league and major league players there every single day. And that guys were still living in LA. So I was doing double duty. Then we had the strength camps coming in. I'd be there from 9 in the morning till 7 p.m. and then do it all over again. Then I'd have to go to Craig's place in Santa Clarita to go help out some of the kids they would bring to go hit with him. Like some days I didn't even get home till like 8, 9 o'clock p.m., and I think those are all things because, again, making yourself available for players, but also I wanted to learn and continue to grow as well. And like, I don't think everyone has all the answers. And I think if you just take a little bit from everybody, you just had more tools in your toolbox. And I think that's something, and I'm saying that because, I give a lot of credit to Clayton McCullough on where I'm at right now, because I'll say that COVID 2020 was the year that put me in this position, because I learned everything. I self-taught myself how to edit video on YouTube and iMovie and different programs of editing. I learned how to, I'm going to say I learned how to dominate PowerPoint and Excel and creating my own templates and templates that we're using on the major league staff right now. PowerPoints that, I help with Clayton, and I did our whole cutoff and relay manual and bump plays and first and thirds that I'm actually updating right now. I'm pretty much done with it to get it out now that the shift's not in there. We had to like modify a couple things on there. That's like 70 slides on PowerPoint. And then, we were doing this during COVID. And then, during COVID, I ended up making blank sheets and then using that in our Zoom calls with players and having players draw on them, or I would draw on them like, hey, where do you want this guy to go? So we were going through cutoff and relays through Zoom digitally, and it was really cool to like, I learned that about myself and things that I can do. And like, since then I've fully remade the whole PowerPoint. I've remade, Chris Woodward now uses a pocket card that I made. I was like, let me see if I can figure this out. And, just things that now I'm able to do, and, helping with our base running manual during COVID as well. And I think those are all the things that, you look on our website. I did all of the infield drills, and I made all the infield drills for the organization. by going out there and taking video and then learn how to cut it and putting our Dodger logo. And those are all things that I learned. I'm still doing these things now to this day and using a lot of those resources in Puerto Rico as a hitting coach. And, I think that's kind of where that happened for me to get to the big leagues. And obviously, your work ethic says a lot. And, I do whatever guys need me to do. And now I kind of do a little bit of everything. I help on, the hitting side, the defensive side, base running. There's definitely a lot of other stuff that I can't talk about, but there's a lot of other things that I handle as well. And, helping out with daily schedule and positioning cards and, everything that's on the iPad I put together. And there's all things that, when Brandon Gomes called me about this position, he said they wanted a baseball guy in the video room and, not only to do the video stuff, but to help out on the baseball side, but also in game, think of like a baseball guy, like, there's hey, we got to work on slides. Like this guy's slide, he's got to stay on the bag or didn't take the throwing lane away or cut off from relays. And I can now from the coaching view that I get to see, bird's eye view, I get to put all this stuff together, send it off to the staff, the rest of the staff, or I just go show the players myself because, I'm with those guys and they know that I'm also was a minor league coach and, helping coach as well. So it's a cool dynamic because I get to kind of touch a little bit of everything, but it's also helping me grow as a baseball guy, a lifer, because I'm learning about different things, whether it's, metrics or numbers or, anything that has to do with performance, just to kind of help build myself up again, adding more tools in my toolbox every single day.
Yeah, man. And it's outstanding. And that's what it takes. And to your point earlier about like the work's never done, like you've done all these amazing things. The organization has done all these amazing things. But guess what? Like spring training's right around their corner and like it's got to keep rolling. Like it never, ever stops.
Yeah.
So it's a cool thing, man, to hear how I've lived part of that stuff with you, but to see kind of where you're at now, man, it's super awesome.
Thanks for tuning into the Brandon Golden Show. Just wanted to talk briefly about Clean Fuego and our sponsor. So if you're looking for better spin efficiency and really to be able to throw the ball without cutting it and have true spin, check out Clean Fuego at cleanfuego.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Brandon Golden Show.
One thing that I want to make sure we touch on here in this show today, what's the difference between, a player, like an all-star player? There's players in the big leagues with the Dodgers that have played multiple different positions, and there's one individual that can do literally anything on planet Earth. He's super athletic. What would be like? What's the difference in a guy like that versus maybe like a college guy, a minor league guy, and even some of the younger guys? Like just about the way they go about their business. Obviously, the guys that you see on a daily basis are super talented. The talent is obviously the 1% of the 1%. But just about the physical things that people can control. I think people think a lot of times like, some of these guys that are all-stars and the best in the world, like they're robots and they can just roll out of bed and go pick it and swing it and do all these different things. From a work ethic standpoint and from how they prepare, how do all those people prepare that I mentioned? A big leaguer,
I'll be honest with you. It's watching those guys and like, you're kind of like a fly on the wall, even though you're hanging out with them and you're talking and whatever it is. But just, if you just like pay attention and watch how they go about their business, it's like they're never satisfied. It's unbelievable. There's like this constant hunger to like be better than they were the pitch before. And it's like you just did everything right, and they want to do it right 100 more times. And it's really special to watch. And I can give you an example, like Mookie Betts. Last year, I didn't go coach winter ball, so I had the opportunity. He lives about 12 minutes from me, so we started working in the off season probably about like 2 weeks after the World Series. And, and most people know about Mookie and how he is about the work that he does and everyone saw, but like his like attention to detail and the work that he wanted to put in and how like precise he wanted to be early on. And we were doing like, we were crawling, then we were walking, and then we were running, and then we went on a full out sprint. Right. And to see him go through his process and not necessarily question everything, but more of like, why? I need to know why. And I think that says a lot about a lot of players, but that's one specific example is why does this have to be this way, or why am I feeling this, or why am I feeling that? And, to see what he was able to do this last year, and that just didn't happen by chance. Like this guy, we'd be at the field for like 2 hours watching video, going over it. We'd be on the phone like 4-way chat with Chris Woodward, Ryan Goings, Mookie, and myself, like, or something. It was just like a 3-way or whatever it was. Like we were on the phone sending video to each other, and like, this is what I saw. Like, what are we going to cover next? And this guy was like, hey, we're not doing anything tomorrow. Cool. Hey, next day, hey, what are you doing? Can we go work like in an hour? Yeah. And then like those are things like those that would happen, and you're just like, man, like this guy never stops. And then, I remember when I came back from Puerto Rico when we signed Shohei, I get a text. I literally got back. I think it was on a weekend, and that that weekend was Saturday. I got back on a Thursday or Friday. That Saturday, they asked me to come in to help out with Shohei. I said, sure, no problem. And like, this guy's just coming off of Tommy John, just starting, and like, he's already grinding. Like, I mean, right now I just saw he's in Arizona, like getting ready. He's already throwing, and like, everyone's obviously throwing, but like, there's so many more of our other players that are, and it just keeps getting earlier and earlier. And I think that's our culture and our organization and the availability that we have for everybody. I mean, you're welcome to go to Dodger Stadium. You're welcome to go to Camelback Ranch and work out all off season. Like, you are welcome to do that. There's no questions asked. And I think that's what makes everything special. I think it's not only the players, but it's also the culture that we have throughout the organization that allows that, where, there's always somebody there to help you, whether it's a performance staff, medical, some coach, it doesn't matter. There's going to be someone there to help you at some point if you need it. And I think that makes players even more hungry. But definitely watching, even the Freddie Freemans, he never misses his routine, defensive routine every single day. Like, and I think, again, those guys help build that culture too. And, guys are just not satisfied with where they're at, and they just want to be better every single day. And, you're not going to be perfect. You're still going to fail, a lot in this game. And that never stops these guys. They just keep working. I mean, I can tell you a time even last year, like we were in Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay playing the Rays in that hot summer in Yankees place. And, Mookie was a little bit in a funk, and, it was a day game. Just got some food, showered already, getting ready to go. And then here comes Mookie and Robert Van Scoy. Hey, what are you doing right now? It's like, none. Can you help us? We're going to go hit. Let's go. And we went and hit after the game and by the time we got back, it was almost 10 p.m. And then we had a day game the next day. But like, those are things that, like, a guy like that's just not satisfied. Oscar Hernandez, same thing. Andy Paz, those guys showing up early. I think that you just see these guys, and there's like a purpose with the work. It's not just, I'm going to show up early just to show up early and hit extra. Like, there's a purpose of why they're doing the things that they're doing, and it's really incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Talk about Andy. Like, I had Andy in Instructs and strength camp, and just the way he's been able to transform his body, and the swing was always there, and the power and just the pure athleticism. And everybody's like, if we can get him to transfer his body, he's going to be a big leaguer. And I'd be John Brown if we don't see what just happened. Like, he is one. I mean, saved the World Series arguably by making that catch. Like, there's so many different things that we could sit here and talk and hold a court for hours upon, like how the system and how different people can influence a player. And there's been so many people behind the scenes that help those guys. And that's what it's all about. I think just the not being satisfied to be great. I mean, you talk about Mookie, like arguably one of the most, if not the most athletic player that can literally do anything, go ball 300. He can do whatever. He can hit. He can play right field. He can play short. Like, there's not many people on planet Earth can do what he does. Right. He could have very easily just said, you know what, today wasn't my day. I'm going to take it to the house, go to the hotel, chill for a little bit, come back and get it tomorrow. But, again, getting there with RVS and rolling, that's what matters, man. That's what it takes.
Yeah, it's pretty special to watch these guys on a daily basis. And then you watch them during spring, and they're doing the same exact thing. It's unbelievable.
Yep, absolutely.
All year long.
Absolutely. Let's kind of jump into a little bit about winter ball. So talk to me about your experience in winter ball in Puerto Rico, what that's done for you, and then how you plan to utilize that, kind of throughout your career, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I my first year was 22. So it was my first year in the big leagues. That was the first year that I got the opportunity to coach. I coached for the Indios in Mayagüez in Puerto Rico. And that was the first year that I coached. I was a first base coach, infield coach there, and did a lot of kind of like an assistant bench coach too, because I helped out with like lineup cards and some other things there, and positioning and all that stuff. And our manager got fired over the Christmas break. So then I got moved as bench coach for a little bit. Then we got to the playoffs and I asked to go back to first base for reasons I can't discuss, but it just worked out that way. And, we ended up winning the championship there. And then again, the team went to the Caribbean World Series, but I had to come back to help out our guys in LA. So I wasn't able to go. Then the next year it came back again. And the team struggled, didn't make the playoffs. And, that's just kind of what happens sometimes. And, I think and just starting those first 2 years, I think it was more of a opportunity because I had been trying to coach winter ball. I've gone on a couple interviews and it just didn't work out for whatever reason in the Dominican. And, this one, Puerto Rico, it definitely helped out. And, it was a good for me. Like, obviously I hadn't coached that year out on the field because of my role. As far as like during the games, it's a little different when you're in game versus the practice portion. So I would handle all the BP stuff and like help out with the infielders and outfielders and, whatever else we needed help with. And then, so it was kind of cool to see all the stuff that I do behind the scenes at that point as well. Like, it was my first year handling iPads for the big leaguers and everything that we do. And so I'm sure the MLB iPad team is frustrated with me after that year because I literally call them every single day, teach me everything I need to know because I'm one to like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. So, right. So now, and I can doing the hitting coaches notebooks and all of the notebooks that I was doing where we were printing. We're like, for me, it was like, we were just wasting paper. So I figured out folders in the system of the iPads through Google Drive, through the MLB portion that we're allowed to use. And so I took the iPad with me to develop this, and I was using the iPad in Puerto Rico to try to convince our coaches to use iPads. So next year comes around, I present it to the staff, and they're like, all right, let's take a look. So next thing you know, hey, can we get the video on here? Yep. And then now I have 7 coaches on iPads. I have all the players, obviously they have their iPads, but I designated the folders in the iPads to be able to do all these things, right? So I'm learning things to get better for our organization for the next year, but I'm also helping myself out because, I get a chance to be a full-time major league coach one day, which is, that's a goal of mine. And, whenever that happens, I would like to be ready for it. And knowing that I don't need to print out paper because I can do it on the iPad. I understand how to use the iPad system and all the things that I create that I use for myself in the video room when I'm in there during the games with my partner, Reimer's twin brother. And so I use these things and I, learn how to develop that. So I think a lot of it too is the things that I learn from each season and being able to help players, help the rest of the staff as well. Now I get to put it to use myself where I'm not the outside, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what we need to work on. This is what we should do. Or, hey, here's some things. Now I get to kind of be in charge of that, which is awesome for me. Right. And I get to put myself in different positions as a first base coach. Where do I want to be? Like things that I did in the minor leagues, but now it's like at another level because it is loud at some of these ballparks in Puerto Rico. So it's close to like what it is when you're in 40,000 in a playoff. Like, how are you going to communicate with players?
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing. And then now fast forwarding it to last year, I got the opportunity to coach first base for us twice this last season against the Mets and then against San Francisco right before the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And, people asked me, like, was I nervous? I think I had more butterflies of, like, excitement because the first game I did it was at home. I didn't tell anybody except for my family. Somehow everybody found out. I had, like, 100 friends, teammates, coaches that were there that they had bought their own tickets. They were going to that game regardless besides me. And, like, I had a friend of mine that bought a ticket by first base, and he's, like, just yelling at me and telling me just clowning me. It was awesome. But,
of course,
I'm getting there, and I'm standing at, I jog across the field, and I'm looking, I'm going like, man, like I used to be up there sitting, like now I'm right here on the grass in the coach's box. And then like once the pitch started, I just locked it in. Like it was really, it's hard for me to explain. Like it just felt like it was normal for me to just be there and do that. I had all of my notes. I studied all the pictures. I had all the keys. I had my card with me, all my notes that I had that I keep during the season as well, on top of Chris Woodward's. And, so I just felt comfortable. Like I was over there. And the cool part about it is, like, again, being on the outside looking in during the games, like, and these are things that I look at, and now you kind of have a feel for your base runners on the Dodgers. But even in Puerto Rico, like, I figured out what guys needed. And, I have a list of things I like to talk about real quick, if I can, during when the guy's at first. And then there's, like, I don't need to tell him that because he knows that, right? Then there's the guys that I have to remind him about certain things, like, hey, take the throwing lane away, ground ball to first baseman. Hey, the ground ball to second baseman, either stop or slide right through him, right? Don't get tagged out and give a double play, right? There's little things like that you have to remind certain guys. But if you're not paying attention to what guys are doing on the bases on a regular basis every single day, you'll miss that, right?
Yep.
It's not, you're just not just standing over. There's more to it than coaching the base than there is just standing over there and, like, all right, go to second, or hey, here's time. Like, there is a lot of work that goes into it, like, getting up the line on a ground ball, because if the ball gets by, he can see, you can stop him, because he's not going to hear you with 50,000 people in the stands, right? And being able to do those things in the minor leagues, coaching in Puerto Rico, and then being able to do it in the big leagues, like, it just felt like normal for me to just do that. And it was really a special moment. But a lot of that happened because I was in Puerto Rico coaching winter and preparing myself, and again, like, just keeping myself current, because I don't want to lose my edge from the coaching standpoint, because I don't get to coach a base all year, right? So that's an opportunity for me. Then fast forward, last offseason I didn't coach. This year I wasn't even looking, and Santurce, which is one of the other teams out of San Juan, the bench coach there was the manager is Omar Lopez, who's the bench coach with Houston, who I built a relationship with him in 2019 because he was the AA skipper for Corpus Christi, who was in our league.
Yep.
And we kept in touch after all that time. He got to big leagues, and, we would talk and all that. Then I got to big leagues, and we would just catch up. And so he calls me, and then one of our international scouts with the Dodgers, it was a GM, and we have always talked, and he was with Mike West before I got there. And he goes, hey, you interested in coaching? I was like, yeah, what role? He goes, hitting coach. Are you good with that? I was like, yeah, I'm good with that. And mind you, I had obviously been coaching hitting all these years. I've, even in the minor leagues, and then obviously being as a assistant, I guess you call it, on the minor league and major league staff, and, being in with RVS and Bates and all those guys in the off seasons, like, you pick up everything that they're working on and what they're doing. And, again, you add more tools to your toolbox. So I took it upon myself and, like, created my own template and, the things of how we do game planning. Then I asked, one of our game planning, JT Watkins and Reimer, who does, and then even Bates and RVS, how they go about it. And, but also it was for me, because I read all the reports, because I have to put them into the iPad system. So I read, constantly have to print them out for players, put them on players' iPads. So, it's not just put it in and forget it. Like, I read those things and understand, and, like, then I go back and watch the video, like, oh, that's why. Okay, that makes sense. Here's the usage, this, that, the other. So I was already prepping this the last 4 years going into this thing without really, like, thinking about it, obviously. And then, there's other things that go into that and understanding what they do. And so when I got there, it was like, you're kind of helping out from on the major league side, and then now you're in charge. Like, you have to run the hitters meeting. So I basically remember all the things that we do. And, like, I created PowerPoints for bullpens in the playoffs and had a playlist going. And then, again, being in my role, I would send video to our hitters every night, verse left, verse right on the starter. I would have video of the relievers coming in, their main relievers, had notes on all these guys, had, template for every pitcher that would come in and what they were trying to do and how we were going to attack them. And I had individual plans for the starters that day, so it was a really great experience for me, just to, again, like, I enjoy hitting. I love hitting. I love every aspect of baseball. Now, my passion is obviously infield, base running, and coaching first base and hitting. Those are, like, my main, but, I had to help outfielders when Dino was gone. I've helped outfielders in the minor leagues, helped the catching department. So it was kind of, just, a little bit about everything, and then you continue to grow in those areas, and the stuff that you're really passionate about, you just got to really kind of push forward and know as much as you can and ask the right questions. And I think that's kind of where, our team ended up winning the championship. So 2 out of the 3 years I've been on a championship team there. And again, the team's in Mexico right now playing the Korean World Series. I had to come home, and
Yep.
I'm working from home too. So I send all the reports late at night once my family falls asleep. Because we're 2 hours behind them. So I have a little time to work. And, but again, these are all experiences that I've had being on the Dodgers staff, whether it's in the minor leagues or the major leagues, and being able to put these things together. And now I can, make it my own, and make something work for me. And also, again, learning new players, major league players, minor league players, guys that play independent ball in Puerto Rico. And now you got to figure out how, again, they're going to teach me to teach them. Right. And I show up, and obviously I show up a couple of days late because, we just win the World Series. We go to Game 7, and, I get about 8 days after the parade to get myself together to go there for the next, 2.5 months. And, so I'm already late to the party. So now you got a first impression, right? And like, you gotta be ready to roll and make yourself available. They're early, trying to grind, send video, everything that they're doing. And then, you watch guys hit, and then, hey, what do you got? Well, what do you got? I know what I got. Like, this is what I'm thinking. Like, first off, like, what is your process? What are you trying to accomplish as a hitter? And again, having those conversations before you just start, well, this is what you need to do. Like, no, it's a conversation to have, and you work together to come to the common goal to help each other, and then now the player is successful, or he can work on things to get better throughout the season. So that's kind of been my experience in Puerto Rico.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Petie, this has been unbelievable, man. One more thing before I let you go and get back to your day out there in LA. What if somebody that wants to follow in your footsteps, somebody that wants to be a coach, coming into the minor leagues and having all these opportunities that you've been able to have, what's maybe 1 to 2 pieces of advice that you would give them?
I would probably say for me, it's like, doesn't matter where you start, right? Like, don't let, you don't have pro experience, you don't have that experience. Like, working with young players is a big thing for me. I believe in that, because you're going to work with a lot of young players that are the same age as the kids that you probably work with right now, right? So I think don't get discouraged of, not getting the job right away or not being looked at for an opportunity. I think you just have to push yourself. And there's also the part of, like, how long have you been coaching, right? Like, what are you doing to get better every single day as a coach? Because we expect that from players, right? Players go, whether it's spring training, what do? They get ready in the offseason. Like, my expectation is I need to be ready too. So that means make sure I'm hitting enough fungo so I'm not sore, like throwing BP, keeping my arm, whatever it is that I need to do to prepare myself, looking over player plans. So we have something. I think for guys to continue to grow in any way possible, whether it's going to ABCA, if you follow guys on Instagram, because social media has been a real big help for me. I've met a lot of people in the infield realm because of it, and I have conversations with guys about it, guys that have specific tools. I end up becoming an ambassador for Valley Gloves and slide MVP because I'm passionate about sliding and base running. And I think you have to network in a way that you're going to continue to grow, if that makes sense. Not just networking just to network. Like, ask the right questions. Like, I have conversations with my friend Tyler that I met through on COVID through a group of people that I know that kind of put us together, and we've remained friends since that. And like, we talk on a daily basis, and we have our back and forth. Like, I agree with that. I agree with that. I don't agree with that, but it's like really comfortable stuff. And I think if you don't go out there and learn from everybody and, wow, I like that idea, or I would do this, or I would say it like this, I think, again, you're adding more tools to your toolbox, and that helps you expand. And, one thing that was taught to me, and I'll share this with everyone, is, you can't just know about one specific thing. I think personally, like, you can be really good at being a really good hitting coach. You can be really good at being an infield coach, base running, whatever position you're talking about. But I think if you learn a little bit about every position and then the stuff that you're really passionate about, you need to know the ins and outs of that. Because what if you get hired as a coach to go be an outfield guy and you're not, Clayton McCullough. Clayton became our major league first base coach, and he was the outfield guy. And Clay and I had conversations about outfield stuff that offseason when he got the job and like plans. And like now, like I asked him about certain stuff now, like, hey, what did you do with these outfielders? And, you know, he gave me his like rundown of drills and things that he was doing. And like, well, we talked about this the offseason before. And like, you know, I felt confident now that I added a couple more tools in my toolbox because of those conversations. Right. And like, you can't be nervous. And like, there's no such thing as a stupid question, but there's also, you're not going to get any information if you don't ask for it. Right. And there's no secret. There's no one has all the answers. Again, I think it's what, again, for me, that was shared is like, whatever's been shared with me, I got to give it back to somebody else. Right. And to whoever wants it. So like I'm saying it right now, if anybody, I don't have all the answers, but if anybody wants to talk, you can find me on Instagram. You can shoot me a message, and you want to talk, we can go on a Zoom, or we can, you know, I'll give you my phone number. We can either text or talk about things. And I think that's where, you know, that's what I would tell people is never stop learning, continue to grow, and go out there and work on these things. If you're not good at hitting a fungo, because there's a pride that needs to be taken. And like, if you're hitting ground balls, the infielders, like you got to work on the top spin ground ball. It's not a backspin ground ball. Now, unless you're hitting a line drive to them, it's different. And like, you know, understanding swings and how fly balls, like hitting it with side spin, hitting it straight, hitting it with hook, like those are all things that are important. And if you're not good at that, you should go work on that, right? If you're not good at throwing BP, well, what else can you do? Go out there, set up an L screen, go to a cage and throw to nothing. Set up a ball on a tee, move the tee around and get better at it, right? Like that's the only way you're going to get better, because for me, it's like we ask players to do these things, but we also have to do it as coaches to make ourselves better personally. But that's kind of the advice I would give for guys.
I love it, Petie. Thank you so much, man, for coming on the show. It's always good to hang out with you, my friend.
Of course, brother. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.